Welcome back, guys. It's me, John Avenger, once again, and this is my second review tonight of the 90s or all that. I believe this is review number 8 because uh, Under Siege 1 would be number 7, and this will be number 8, I believe. And this is this is the sequel to Under Siege that came out in 1995, so it was like 3 years later. So it was still fresh. It was still Seagal in his prime, and that is Under Siege 2, The Dark Territory. A very underrated sequel that I think it still holds up. I just saw it a couple days ago because I hadn't seen it in years, so I wanted to give it a watch to see if it holds up. And it does. It's a decent sequel, I will say that. I'm glad that Roger Ebert liked this one and the first one. Rest in peace, Roger Ebert. Yeah, it says Die Hard on the Train and a lively show, some amazing stuff. I agree with that. That's a real brother from Peter Rayner from the Los Angeles Times. It's a fun sequel. I think that Seagal plays the character again. I think his name is Casey Ryback. Like the wrestler from the WWE. He comes back and the direction is really good in the film. That they didn't just copy the first film. They had a new cast. Just Seagal's the only one that comes back from the first film. You have a bunch of references to the first film, especially the ending, but I'm not going to spoil that if you haven't seen this movie. It's got some ridiculous, ness to it. They're using a nuclear satellite to destroy cities and national monuments, but it's an idea that works. As silly as it is, it works now, especially with the movies we have nowadays with bad CGI. There is some dodgy CGI in this, like near the end, but it's a little dated, but it's not like terrible. It's not like the worst I've ever seen. But it's a decent sequel. You got a decent cast in it. You got Seagal coming back. You got Morris Chestnut, who I did like in the film. I forgot that. I thought he was a bad guy in the film. No, he's not a bad guy. You got Everett McGill, and you have a young Katherine Heigl, who is not annoying. She's tolerable in the film. I know a lot of people hate her. I don't hate her in this movie. She serves her purpose. She's in the film a little bit. So, and I've always said that she's a beautiful woman. I like looking at her. So I'm not going to complain about that. Anything will be a step up from some of the chicks we got nowadays. You know what I'm talking about. You got the villain that played Dorian in The Mask. The one thing I really don't like in the film, even watching it again, the villain. The villain is a complete downsized from compared to the first film. Because in the first film you had Tommy Lee Jones and you had Gary Busey. This one you got some freaking Jerry curl haired freaking Jerry Seinfeld looking douche nozzle with nice eyes that he is just not threatening at all. He's one of the weakest villains in one of these Seagal movies. He's not over the top. He's just kind of like when he tries to be intimidating, he yells at a screen, and I'm like, you're not intimidating, dude. I love his comeuppance at the end. It's just a great way. The Seagal kicks him to flames and just he explodes. It's freaking awesome. So Seagal still kicks ass in this movie. Him and Morris Chestnut take out the bad guys. He still chops people. He's still freaking breaking arms and limbs and breaking necks. He's still a badass in this movie. Um, I like that it's on a train. It's a hell of a lot better than Speed 2, which is on a boat, which is boring. That's a bad sequel, on a boat and so or on compared to this. It should have been like this. This is how you do it. R rated. You don't downsize. You never make a sequel PG-13 to an R rating movie. It usually never works. It didn't work for Speed. It didn't work for Terminator. It does not work for even Die Hard. I like Live Free or Die Hard, but it should have been R rated from the beginning because it just feels sanitized when you make it for kids. These action movies from the 80s and 90s were for adults and for older teens, 18 and 19, not for 12-year-old boys. They're made for a certain demographic, and I'm glad I got to see this as an adult. It kicks ass. It was worth the money I bought on it. I bought this on Amazon for a couple bucks. So worth it. The disc is in good shape. It also has Kurtwood Smith, the villain from RoboCop, the original RoboCop, the superior RoboCop. He's good in the. He's a good guy in the film. His acting is really good. I've always liked Kurtwood Smith. He can play both roles. A really good actor that can play good roles and bad roles like nobody's business. And it's got a beautiful blonde in there. Forgot her name. She was in Demon Knight, the Tales from the Crypt movie, which I do like her in that. She was in Hot Shots Part Deux, which with Charlie Sheen, that crazy lunatic. But it's a fun movie, and It's a fun film. It's a fun sequel. I'm glad it got made. I'm glad it's fun. It's a nice double bill with the first one. It doesn't weaken the first one just because the villain sucks. Because I thought the villain sucked in Deadpool, but the movie still kicks ass. But it's fun, and I want to see these other films that Geoff Murphy he directed, Free Jack and The Quiet Earth. I want to check those out someday because I like his direction. I like the way he holds the camera steady. He doesn't shake the camera like the idiot Olivia Megaton does in Taken Two. He keeps it steady. You see what's going on. You see the blood squibs. You see the action. And, a lot of the sequences on the train look great. It's a real train for the most part. It looks great. You can get more invested in the action when it's there, not when it's just a bunch of green screen when which looks completely fake, like in Gods of Egypt or IPD or an Avatar. It just looks like a freaking video game. Here, no video game. It looks really good, and the film has held up. This film is over 20 years old. It's better than a lot of action films today. I will see Hardcore Henry one day, but I